Alright everyone, we start off today, obviously, I think, talking about the Georgia Guidestones. That is, they have been destroyed. They were damaged heavily in an explosion the other day, and they've been demolished completely, so they are no longer. First, I'll give my opinions on the monument itself before I go into the symbolic victory that really is their destruction. The Georgia Guidestones, most of the actual lettering that's there is not particularly, it's not out there, it's not objectionable. It's, hey, here's how to guide mankind. We're going to have fair courts. Well, that's good. It'd be nice if we actually accomplished that someday. Guide people's, emotions and faith and stuff with tempered reason. It almost sounds like an enlightenment tract. The one that's really a sticking point for people is the first point on them, which is to maintain mankind at 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. By the way, I would point out the irony. The Guidestones are now in balance with nature. Entropy has hit them, and now they've devolved back into crumbled bits of rock. And by the way, to the people who maintain this little monument, you could just raffle off the larger chunks to people. I'm sure you could get a few grand a pop for them for collectors. Yeah, you could definitely recoup the loss. Maybe put something less objectionable there, like the U.S. flag. Oh, wait. That's become the most objectionable symbol within the U.S. for certain groups. I'm sure you'd have to replace that flag repeatedly as it gets brought down and then burned by Antifa members. It is in Georgia, so you might have a little bit less of that than in certain parts of the country, but yeah, there'd be some vandalism. Interestingly enough, relatively little vandalism on this monument over time, despite the fact that it's been linked in with like the WEF Soros globalism thing. Now, here's why it's good that it's gone. It has become a symbol of globalism, that is, of global progressivism, which really is regress, not progress, more than anything else. It's become a symbol of that particular zeitgeist, and literally speaking, that sort of movement. Eat the bugs, live in the pods, etc. And that's because there's an uncoupling of the enlightened belief of actual progress under what was initially occult movements, Blavatsky and Theosophy originally, pre-Besant, even the Freemasons before they decided to, basically stop existing for the most part. If you look at the actual tenets of these groups, there is progress to be had here, but here's the difference. Here's a little bit of history of these spiritual movements. What happens is that the voluntaristic, automated progress that was posited by the relatively optimistic individuals, especially in the 19th century, gave way to groups that thought that the way to achieve that progress was through force. It was through regulation. It was through compulsion. It was no longer like Blavatsky saw it as, hey, we're moving into a new era. People are becoming more enlightened. This is a sign of the times. It is going to happen. There is no compulsion. Why would you change the non-compulsion system is already working. Things are inevitably marching in the positive direction because the masses, as they become more literate especially, will realize the virtue and the value of moving towards those progress goals. That is, of more fair trials, ironic, of people not screwing each other up the ass all the time. They're going to reject heavy-handed statism. Even Besant, who had corrupted the Theosophical movement with her post-socialism. I've read multiple works by her. She shows a marked skepticism towards prohibition, towards compulsion in education in public schools, of social engineering, really, beyond core curriculum. It almost sounds a little bit like anti-globalism if you read some of these materials. Just to be clear, people who ridicule the occult and think that it has a tie-in with globalism, you're completely wrong. What happened is that the power structures that were created slowly over time became corrupted by materialists, by people who effectively, in many cases, they're atheists, or regardless of their own spiritual beliefs, they're really in it for themselves. They devolved more into the Egyptian priesthood as opposed to Jesus and having a bunch of people around him that simply were fellow travelers. It's a corruption. It's the corruption of authoritarianism. So the fact that this monument, loosely termed, is gone is a shot across the bow, and a positive one, I think, towards the ending of globalism. This is another symbol, a potent symbol, in my opinion, of people getting tired of the current direction of the world. Globalism, authoritarianism, heavy-handed regulation, intervention, heavy-handed government and systems in general of all kinds, grinding them down. People realize that the way of the world is not moving in a positive direction. That's because of the deviation from the voluntaristic progressive system that initially existed. By the time of the actual U.S. progressive movement, you've already gotten away from that. Even if you still have a positive message, what happened over time is that more and more people sought power within especially political frameworks that were connected with that. Political frameworks, in order to make more money, in order to gain political dominance. Sort of like Joseph Stalin co-opting what was initially invented to be a stateless system under communism. Of course, the stateless system can never exist. It's pie-in-the-sky utopian bullshit. But at least there was an attempt. An attempt was made. Stalin didn't give a shit. He just wanted to kill 20, 30 million people, mostly through starvation, by the way. Many Ukrainians. So links in the description. You can see it actually, the first link, they've got footage of it being blown up. I think that that's orgasmic. I think that it's wonderful. The second link, of course, a little bit of footage of the aftermath. It has been completely demolished, though. The explosion destroyed one of the 4 pillars that were around the monument. The problem is that a monument like that, if it doesn't have all 4 pillars underneath the main cap, it's no longer stable, and nobody could get near it because it might collapse at any given time, so they had to destroy it all. They were forced to demolish their monument to bug eating, their monument to pod living, which is what it has become a symbol of. This shows that a person that doesn't even necessarily know exactly what's written on it blew it up because it's associated with globalism. It's a shot across the bow against the global elite. I think it's wonderful. It's sort of like the American version of the tractor protests happening currently all over the Netherlands. I think that it's a good hashtag resist, and this time a real one. That's about all. Peace out.